What is up, you guys? Glitchiz here, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing you my go-to power surge build. Before I get into too much detail, I do want to preface this video by saying that it isn't 100% fully min-maxed. There is a couple like additional perk modifications I'd like to make with my mods. The secondary perks aren't as good as they could be, and I also would like to test out things like the gas mask, which I don't actually have, which is a golden piece of armor that helps out with power surge builds. So there is a few things that you can potentially tweak, but the Outcast is a very easy weapon to get. It's pretty much guaranteed this beta, so a lot of people are going to have it, and this is a really good build if you're just starting out to help carry you to the late game, and even use in the late game as a viable DPS option until you unlock some better gold weapons. It does get outshined by things like shrapnel and especially unstable bomber right now. That's like the new meta. You can do so much damage with unstable bomber right now, but it does hold up to mid to high tier shrapnel builds. It does about 21 to 22,000 damage I've gotten around on average. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. And I think it'll be a great build for people that are looking to use up some of the lower tier items that they may have. So in the gear section, I still like to use the recurve crossbow. The bullseye debuff is just really strong. It basically grants all weapons a plus 30% crit rate against targets marked with the bullseye for 10 seconds. The effect only triggers once every 15 seconds on the same target, so once it runs down, you do have a little bit of a delay, but the fixed 15-second timer really isn't that bad. And because we're using the Outcast, we get a bonus where crits raise the chance of triggering the power surge effect, which is the main thing that we're going to be trying to stack with this build. So having that bullseye debuff and increasing our crit rate is only going to make us proc those shock hits more frequently, which is nice, and it'll just increase our DPS even more. Moving on, and then for the mod, I just have a crit damage boost mod on here to increase the chances of getting a critical hit with that first shot. Moving on to the main weapon, we're using the Scar Outsider. You can also use like the AA-12 corrosion shotgun. That's a really good gold weapon. But I find the Outsider rather to be a little bit more reliable, and obviously a lot more people are going to have this, and this is probably what most people are going to be using for their power surge builds. So that's why this is the one I wanted to demo. But for the mod, you can technically use any of the two gold shock damage mods. I prefer Shock Rampage. Each time power surge damage is inflicted, the power surge trigger factor increases by 10%, and it lasts for 5 seconds, and it's stackable up to 3 times. So that is going to trigger our shock procs constantly. You're just going to see those extra damage numbers popping up all over the place because of this mod. Actually, for the accessories, I run the Hammer Compensator, Compact Reflex Sight, the Tactical Laser, and the Gold Extended Mag for the extra DPS. Moving on to the gear, the main mask, or helmet rather, that I would recommend using is the Mayfly Goggles. This has a perk where power surge trigger times gets an additional +1. Unfortunately, the power surge base damage does get decreased. It's because of that particular debuff that I do wish I could try the special helmet that's good, called the Gas Mask Hood. This has another power surge passive ability. Triggering power surge grants crit rate plus 40% for 3 seconds. So obviously, again, the more crit rate we have, the higher chances of us proccing that power surge buff with our extra shock hits. So this is also our potential really good armor piece if you manage to get lucky and unlock it in the wish machine to use for this build. I just unfortunately don't have it. So the next best option definitely is going to be the Mayfly Goggles. For the mod, I run the Gold Precise Strike mod. Hitting weak spots grants plus 15% weak spot damage for 3 seconds, and this can stack up to 3 times, so as long as you're hitting the weak spot, you can get upwards of 45% bonus weak spot damage, as long as you're accurate. I would like to see some better secondary perks, but these aren't too bad. But mod-wise, Precise Strike, really good. Moving on to the mask, I like to run the Falcon Mask, a full 4-piece Falcon set, because the crit rate bonus that you get and the psi intensity bonus that you get are really nice, because for those of you that don't know, shock damage actually scales with your psi intensity, so that's also a good stat to try and boost, and you can really only do that with the passes from armor. But moving back to the mask, I have the Falcon Mask. And on the mask, I have the Thunderclap mod, the gold Thunderclap mod. After triggering Power Surge 20 times, the next weapon shot summons a Heavenly Lightning Strike, doing 250% psi intensity shock damage at the target point. So what you'll see here is when we're doing damage on the dummy, you're going to see tons of those normal shock procs going off, but every 20th shock proc, there's going to be a giant lightning bolt that drops down, and that does 250% extra damage based off of our psi intensity, which is really, really nice. That's going to be big boosts in damage there. Moving on to the gloves, I run the Falcon gloves. This has a crit damage boost mod because that gives us a plus 14 crit rate, which is good. The gold one gives plus 14 crit rate because, again, more crit rate the better. If we get crits, that's going to increase the chances of our power surge proccing. So we'll always want crit rate there. Oh, also, I didn't mention, but on the Outsider, I also, for the Calibration 7 and Calibration 10 perks, I do both bonus crit rate. Again, for the same reason. So that is what I like to run for that. Moving on to the boots, I run the camo boots for the same reason that I did it in my shrapnel build. It's because it bonuses the crit damage when you hit a target affected by the bullseye, which for bosses and even elites, we're going to be doing constantly with our recurve bow. So really good built-in passive perk there. But as for the mod, I have, technically you can do any of the 20% bonus damage gold mods. I like slow and steady. This gives plus 10% melee, weapon, and status damage when your HP is above 90%, and an additional 10% flat out. So 20% extra weapon damage there as long as we have good survivability. Again, I'd like to get some better secondary perks on this, but it's not too bad. But that is the mod I run on the boots. For the chest piece, I run the Falcon jacket. This will have a blue weak spot mod. I did test the difference between weak spot damage, status damage, and things like that. And as long as you're good at aiming, weak spot, because it's a multiplicative modifier, tends to give the highest damage output of any of the blue mods. So that is what I'm rocking on both the chest and the pants. So we got bonus weak spot damage on this. That's plus 18% there. And I got a nice little magazine capacity and bonus weak spot damage secondary, which is nice. Moving on to the pants. Lastly, we're running the fourth piece for the Falcon pants. That also has a blue weak spot damage mod on it with some nice crit damage and another magazine capacity boost there. Moving on, some things that I forgot to mention in my shrapnel build, which I'll definitely go over this time around, is the perks in the cradle. The main ones that I like to take are crossbow damage boost. This gives our crossbow a little bit more damage and has a chance to refill an arrow after hitting a weak spot of an enemy. You're obviously going to want to take rifle amplify. This will increase the damage with assault rifles. The other one I like to take is flame resonance. After a roll, status damage gets plus 25% for 6 seconds. Status damage does work generically across all damage types, so that includes shock damage. So nice little boost there if you're dodging around constantly, which in boss fights you definitely will be. Moving on, I like to take deadly combo. This will reduce the cooldown on your medicines and make them a little bit more effective. On the collection 4 deviations perks, I definitely want upper hand. Reloading grants plus 30% instant damage to power surge and unstable bomber for 10 seconds. So this is really good, obviously, for power surge builds. I also have the deadly combo, which is good for shrapnel, but you don't technically need that for this one. I just like to swap between builds constantly, so I grab that. And then in the last column, I pick up elemental sense. This will give plus 30% damage for blast and shock damage. This should be obvious. Power surge procs shock damage hits, so more shock damage bonuses we can get, the better. And then lastly, I have bullet hunt upon a kill with special ammo effects. Again, this is for shrapnel, so not a big deal, but I like to take that for swapping between builds easily. If you're running the shotgun, then obviously take things like shotgun amplify would be a good one. To increase the corrosion shotgun, but that is the perks that I like to take for the build. And then one other thing that I didn't go over is food items. There is a few food items that are particularly good for shock builds. In particular, the ones I'd recommend are either the Stargazy Pie. This will increase crit damage by 20%. Another good one is the Whimsical Drink. This will increase your psi intensity by 30%, and our power surge and shock damage scales with our psi intensity, which is nice. So the higher psi intensity we have, the more elemental damage we're going to be doing. So that's a really good one. And then I believe there was another one that gave just flat out weapon damage. I'm not sure which one it was. There's another one that does flat out weapon damage. I'm not sure which one it off the top of my head. Feel free to look it up. But there's another one. Bullseye wouldn't be bad. I can't seem to find it. But just know there is a meal item in here. I forget which one it is. I don't want to go through all of these and waste a bunch of time. But it gives just a flat plus 10 to your weapon damage. So that's another good one. But if you're limited to picking just some top ones, Stargazy Pie or definitely the Whimsical Drink would be the two main ones that are good for elemental builds and psi intensity based builds. So feel free to take those. So yeah, that is pretty much the build. Last thing we can do is kind of go over here and test out the damage. So let's go ahead. So yeah, we're at 20,000 there. I've seen it between 20 and 22,000 you can get up to, depending on how many crits that you get. But it's pretty consistent. So as you can see, not bad damage for a purple weapon that has a lower base damage than like the Last Valor for shrapnel builds. So it just shows that you can get good DPS even on a build that isn't min-maxed with all gold armor and gold weapons. So yeah, pretty good. 127k total with one mag. About 20 to 22,000 damage per second. So not too shabby. But yeah, that is pretty much the build, you guys. I hope you enjoy it. Feel free to comment down below with any updates that you think you may have tested to make this build a little bit better. I want to make these guides for pretty much every build type as good as they possibly can be. And I'm sure there's people out there that have mained some of these type of build styles and played them a lot more than I have. It's kind of hard as a creator to make the best of the best min-max builds for every single type because you're limited to the armor and weapons that you can unlock. It's really RNG based. So yeah, feel free to send updates and I'm happy to update the guide. I'll post it in a pinned comment or something to make these builds even better. But yeah, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you keep up to date on all the future videos. I have bunch more build videos that I want to make, as well as some cool tips and tricks videos and extraction tooltip videos, so keep an eye out for those. Last but not least, if you want to join a community of like-minded gamers, feel free to check out the link in the description and join us on the Discord. We have hundreds of players in there now, many of which are playing OnceHuman and always looking for people to join up with. So if you want to join up, hopefully we see you guys around. We are gathering more people for the warband because we want to do some big Prime War battles here soon. We're gathering up that fuel, so that's another fun activity that we're all going to be doing together. So yeah, hopefully we see you guys around. But until the next one, hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you all later.